Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our Monday morning trading session. Hang on one second here. It's almost December. Can you believe it? Here it is, the end of November. All right, you should be able to see my screen. For those of you new to the room this morning, welcome. Just a real quick overview of what you're looking at here. It's the diversified trading system. We've got the Hawk here in the upper left, the Falcon Swing Trader upper right, Eagle Trend Trader lower left, and the Raptor here on the bottom right. These charts I'm looking at are the NASDAQ. I'm also following crude oil and gold, and it looks as though gold just put in a very nice rally as the North American market opened. Here's gold on the Eagle. You can see we had our trend change down here. Here's our with trend signal. Gold opened up right about here, and a few moments later produced another with trend signal. This would be close enough, I would consider it to be a hard edge bounce. And out of that, so far gold is posting a very nice little rally. So it's looking as though gold price is a little bit stronger today, at least out of the open. The NASDAQ waffling a little bit more. It does look like a little bit of an opening gap to the market this morning, seeing how we left off back here on Friday. Of course, Thursday was Thanksgiving. Friday session was nothing but chop and very, very subdued. So I think the markets, we're going to need to give them a little bit of time here to get their act together. Trading up here around this 4,700 range, very significant. Whole numbers like that in the stock market tend to carry some psychological support and resistance levels to it. But the market has topped out here a few times already. So here, I'll build you a daily chart so you can see what I'm talking about. It's not a bad idea to look at a daily chart from time to time if you haven't done so, just to get a different perspective. All right, so here we are in the NQ on a daily chart, and you can see quite plainly that the market has contended with this whole 4750 region for a while now. And it would not be out of the realm of possibility to see the NQ tail off a little bit from here. You can see there is some room to move here if we're expecting some sort of retracement back to a trend line. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But like I said, this whole area around 4,700 fairly influential. Just got a first micro macro cross here on the Hawk, and it looks like that signal worked out. So here was our first test of the market heading lower. We're back into the hard edge now, both on the Raptor and the Eagle. And it's surprising, but the market still fairly bullish on the surface. So we'll see now whether we get a bounce out of this hard edge. If we get a test of the extreme and a failure, that could set us up for a little bit of a move lower. But right now, the bias definitely seems to be for the if you're looking at the longer term or I suppose longer term, the overall for the NQ, if you factor out those couple days over the holidays, the NQ still a little bit stronger. All right, we'll give them a moment. But that first micro macro cross, nice little signal there. Okay, working now on a possible trend change signal here on the Falcon. Now this is one of our higher probability signals, but the problem, of course, we haven't seen a test of the extreme and it's potentially counter trend. Oops, so we're getting 3 warning dots in a row here. If prices continue lower, then we're likely to see it fill here, but this is not what I would call a high probability signal. I'm highlighting it for you, but I suspect we're going to get a better opportunity than what this one is. And once again, it's all based on the lack of the test of the extreme, right? We haven't really seen the market's coming down, but we haven't really seen the failure. We haven't seen the sellers take full control away from the buyers and say, yeah, we're not going to let you guys get any higher than whatever, up here, and we're going to knock you down. That's our cue to get more aggressive shorting, but we don't have that just yet. Now, of course, it's not to say the NQ can't slip lower here, but if you're looking for a higher probability trade, I would say this is not it. But that's not unusual. A Monday, after a 4-day break. Actually, what is a little unusual is how quiet the market has been for a Monday session after a holiday. Usually we see quite a bit more volatility, but I think that's because we're looking at a couple of important announcements this week. I do believe that Janet Yellen is scheduled to make an announcement Wednesday and I believe Thursday, but everybody's looking for Wednesday's announcement to be the big one. All right, so here we go. You can see that on the Falcon, the signal did print. Now we're taking some heat, which we would have anticipated. Hence the stop way up here. Part of the reason I don't like taking counter trend trades, which is how I would classify this particular setup here on the Falcon. It's counter trend because we haven't seen that test of the extreme and the failure. So I'm trying to sell into an uptrend. Part of the reason I don't like these types of trades is if the market does rally now and come back with a with trend signal, well, obviously I'm stuck. we'll see. We'll see whether they pay off to the short side. And there we go. We're hitting the skids again. All right, getting a little bit of a macro pullback set up now, and possibly a late filter entry here in the Falcon, which is encouraging. Yeah, of course, if the market breaks down here and heads lower, then it's going to complete our signal. This macro pullback, again, not as appealing as one that has had a larger retest here. You could enter here on the hash mark, or if you wanted to err on the side of caution, you could enter below that swing low right here. If you're going to enter below the swing low, you may as well cover the trade a little bit tighter. Of course, the problem with entering below the swing low, you can see we're offering up about half of our profit objective just to get entry. But, you know, sometimes that's the better of the two scenarios. If we get a better looking second push entry here, all right, let's throw it in. Oops, sorry. 2, 3, may build into a 4-arrow consolidation. Kind of tough slogging this morning. We've got obvious support down here on the lows. The trend does seem to be down. This does start to look a little bit like a bear flag. We're into yellow bars now, so I'm going to cancel this order. One, two, three. Well, actually, it is building into a 4-arrow consolidation also, and now into a green bar sell. And I always say, you know, the 4-arrow consolidation signal is the only one I will take off of a yellow bar. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to risk just a single on this green bar sell / 4-arrow consolidation, because it does look as though the market is getting serious about making a higher test of the extreme here. If this bar finishes lower, which it just did, I'm going to become more aggressive now with my stops. And we hit our break even and our target. Hooray for us. So the 4-arrow consolidation is a very powerful consolidation pattern also. And it looks like our Falcon trade is going to ride out that swing also. Come on, get down there. You're almost there. I should get more aggressive with my stop on this one also. Yeah, parabolics will do it. There we go. Oh, you're joking. Come on, get down there. You're not going to leave me hanging here. Just a couple of ticks from break even. There we go. All right, so we hit the break even. We should hit our target now here on the primary support. And it does look as though prices have committed to a little bit of a move lower anyway. Good morning, Jim. Jim shooting some advanced decline numbers. Market seems very balanced this morning. We have about 1450 on the buy and just over 1200 on the sell. Generally speaking, whenever the advanced decline numbers are that tight, it doesn't really tell you that much about the market. When they get really skewed, then things tend to get interesting. Oh, come on. You've got to hit that. Oh, they're just trying so hard. Oh, 46.80, a real stumbling block. squeeze this trade. Okay, we'll see in a moment whether that was a good idea. I can't believe that they would be that close and not finally hit my profit target, but stranger things have happened. I do believe that we are going to see the market continue lower. So if you're in this trade and you want to hold on, leave it at break even, I think you're going to be all right. I just don't have much patience for the market when it's moving so erratically and so slowly. Just for giggles, let's throw a trend line across the top there. So we had to wait for it a little bit, but a couple decent trades, both on the hawk here with our 4-arrow consolidation / green bar sell, and also on the falcon, which took a little bit of time to mature, but did eventually do just that. Might be a little while before we get another decent signal now, as prices are consolidating again. You can see the bars getting a little bit wider. You can also see that the falcon did eventually hit our profit objective if I had stayed with it a little bit longer. Now we're getting a little bit of support coming into the market. All right, so we've got some support coming in here on the primary support line. You can see on our support and resistance suite, we're producing some green dots. Technically, well, I don't point this type of trade out to you very often because it is another counter trend signal. And actually this one's not uh, very well structured either, so I'm not going to even refer it to you. But whenever you entertain the notion of a counter trend signal on the Falcon, either your double dot buy or your double dot sell, you always need to be able to tie in the support or resistance zone with something in the history of the chart. Here we had the contract highs. So if you were following the market at this time and you saw the double dot signal, you could at least tie it into the contract highs and say, yeah, okay, if the market's going to head higher, or pardon me, head lower, it's going to exhibit another bounce off those contract highs, which is what we've seen it do in the past. But here, these lows, not very influential. However, if it gets down here, around this 46.68 area and produces a double dot signal, that could be a lot more interesting. Right now we're just kind of snooping around for direction. Okay, well, so much for my thoughts that maybe the buyers were going to make another comeback. Jim says the Russell was stronger earlier, but now it's starting to flatten out and weaken. The NQ seems to be leading the charge this morning. Not quite back to this 46.68 area that I had my eye on, but still, getting there. Can we shoot a trend line across these lows? I guess we probably could. It's a little bit flat. Usually you'd like to see your trend line a little bit steeper, but even these flat areas will have some follow through to them. And we're at the top of the hour also. So that's significant because very often we do see some resistance come into the market. All right, so it looks as though we're starting to get some of that support now. Just waiting for something decent to develop here. We actually suppose you could call this another 4-arrow consolidation here in the hawk. 1, 2, 3, 4 signals here. Normally on a 4-arrow consolidation though, the better ones tend to look like this. They tend to retrace a little bit, or at the very least they go sideways. We don't usually like the ones that drift lower like this. So this is the highest probability. This is okay. This is less desirable. Why? Well, because this one could just end up going sideways or even bottoming out and reversing. But if the market channels or pulls back, those are stronger type formations as far as the 4 arrow consolidation goes. Well, nothing going on. We're just kind of drifting at the moment. The market again seems pretty happy where they are. Okay, getting some yellow bars here in the hawk, which we might anticipate given the consolidation. All right, folks, nothing really going on here at the moment. You're just going to want to hang tough for a little bit. When the market gets like this, it's really tempting to throw an order in just, out of boredom to do something, but you're better off doing anything else. Okay, so the seller's giving it another push here. We did get the trend change signal here on the Eagle. I don't know. Maybe we're not going to see a real big test at the extreme. Maybe this is going to be it right here. We're just going to see the market wander lower, perhaps find some support here around the 4670 area, and then wander right back up again. It's not like we haven't seen that before. In fact, that's been the last week or so of trading where the market is just range locked, or at least for the longest time. All right, so here we are. We're back now at this trend line. Prices have drifted somewhat. We'll see what kind of follow through we get now that we're at these lows. You could have considered this here on the Hawk, another first micro macro cross signal. Not because the micro and macro lines crossed, but because everything went out of sync. Your filter went out of sync. Bar is trend line, and then everything came back into sync. Some days are like this. You just gotta try to ride it out. Yeah, like Jim says, holiday trading mentality. The advanced decline actually a little bit stronger again. Looking at, Jim says we got 1570 on the buy and 1240 on the sell, so still around 1250 positive, which is not huge, especially considering prices keep going lower. Okay, so it looks as though this whole 46.68 area that we were watching is very likely to hold, and we may end up getting a little bit of a rally out of the market yet. Okay. Here's a green bar sell. We can take it a couple of ways. We can either take it with the trend or we can set up to trade counter trend. This is another one of these signals I wouldn't get too heavily vested in just because the market isn't really committed. What I'm looking for here is a test of the extreme, and because it's a scalp, hopefully we can get in and out before there's a potential reversal. I'd like to see the market commit just one more bar. Actually, I could be much more aggressive with my stops on this. Because if it fails at this point, well, it's probably going to reverse on me. Actually, I will give them, oops, we're going to go like this. There. I'll hold above that swing high. You can just see the reluctance of the market to commit to anything. That's why I said if you're going to take some of these trades, you're probably going to want to keep your stops very handy and limit your risk exposure. You can see I only put a onesie in here. If it works, great. If not, that's how it goes sometimes. Now that we're testing the break even, or close to testing the break even, I'm going to start aggressively rolling my stop, just because I'm not going to give this market too much space to flounder. Come on, get down there. Well, I have a bad feeling this is going to be the way the market is going to be behaving until we get through this week's announcements and reports. I do believe the end of this week is non-farm payroll, and that's always a big one. Of course, with the green bar sell, it's that signal that we can also trade counter trend, right? So you can look at taking the counter trend of that, looking at the buy, or you could use it simply as a early warning and wait for that first micro macro cross to develop. If prices are going to trade higher, then we're likely to see that first micro macro cross. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can't sneak a couple more ticks out of this if prices in fact are going to challenge these highs. Okay, so we hit the break even. I'll go with the parabolic strategy. If prices do trade higher from here, the parabolics will help keep the stops relatively tight. I'm thinking, this whole area from 46.83 to about 85 has caused a whole lot of congestion for the market before. If it gets above here, it could well trade to 46.90, which was the next area where we really saw the market kind of consolidate and reverse from. Come on, get up there. There you go. You want to. Come on, let's see what the Geiger counter is doing. No, I was hoping the Geiger counter would be hard over here to the buy side. It's drifting. It's holding. There we go. It's hard over. Now it's chewing through some of those buy orders. There we go. All right, let's see if we can't get 46.90 out of this trade. I'll throw in a profit order up here. And let's see if, in fact, it does end up getting that high. Oh, well done, Jim. Jim picked up 20 ticks on the mini Dow and another 11 on the mid cap. No easy feat today. The advanced decline getting stronger now. He says we've got almost 1,700 on the buy and 1,100 on the sell. So the buyer's stepping up somewhat. And now everything's back on hold. Got a comparable signal here on the Falcon, our trend change signal, into the hard edge here on the Eagle, but we are producing a buy signal, so that could result in a rule of three type setup. Really lacking trend momentum at the moment. They're going to tap me here at break even on the retrace, but we are going to come back with the first micro macro cross. But honestly, today is a very difficult trading day. The market just very uncommitted. We'll stay with it for a little bit longer, but I'm thinking this is one of these days where you might want to come back in the afternoon toward the close. Things are going to liven up a little bit, but otherwise, you're just going to continue to see the market mess around like this, trade between the highs and the lows, sideways, non-directional. So here's that first micro macro cross that we're following now on the hawk. Let's see if we get anything else brewing here. Oh, a little bit of a reaction to the hard edge on the eagle. Reaction here on the hard edge from the raptor. Our first micro macro cross now turning into a macro pullback. And all I'm looking for here is a little short-term tick to the upside, you know, something to retest the highs before there's a failure. But I'm thinking it's more likely we're going to see the market continue lower from here. Get back down, test these lows. Because that's the kind of day it's been. So if you're looking for a high probability signal, I'm not sure this is the one that you want to jump in on. In fact, like I said, a reversal does seem more likely. Come on, get up there. Don't leave me hanging now. Watching the Geiger counter here to see if we get the buyers starting to chew through some orders. Possible late filter entry signal here on the Falcon. So our trend line still in sync, our filter out of sync. The signal is far from complete, but it's starting to resemble a late filter entry. Jim says, I think I'm going to go back to sleep. Yeah, that's the kind of day it is. I think, folks, we're going to button up the room. I really don't anticipate anything serious happening here today. The trend does seem to be down, so that would be my immediate preference. But yeah, choppiness is most likely to be how this market is going to progress through the rest of the session. We'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully things will loosen up a little bit by then, but I suspect nothing is really going to happen until toward the latter part of the week, when we'll probably see some volatility come back into the market. Or, as I said, you may want to check back with your charts later in the day. We're going to see some volatility creep back into the market near the close, which is customary. All right. Well, we'll button up the room for now, and I will see you guys again tomorrow morning. Talk to you then.